The NASCAR playoffs are finally here. Today we're looking at the first three races in the first round of the playoffs, plus which drivers could be going home early. Welcome to the Breaking Balls channel. It's Bob here, and if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis here. We have got 26 races behind us in the NASCAR season. If you thought that went fast, the last 10 playoff races go by in a whirlwind. So buckle up, subscribe, and sit tight. We'll keep you in the loop for everything NASCAR, starting with the first round of the playoffs this weekend in Atlanta. If you're unfamiliar with the NASCAR playoffs, it's a 16-driver playoff grid, 3 races in each round until that last round, that championship race with 4 drivers in Phoenix. 4 drivers are eliminated in each round. The first round in the NASCAR playoffs this year consists of Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol. And before we get into that, let's go ahead and look at the initial NASCAR playoffs entering the first race. You've got Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell leading the charge with their war chest of stage points they had accumulated this season. Then Tyler Reddick, your regular season title winner. Denny Hamlin, notably 6th place. They're only 10 points above the playoff cut line. Even though he had 3 race wins this year, NASCAR had that 10-point playoff penalty from the engine penalty a few weeks ago issued to Denny Hamlin. So a tough blow to the 11 team. The other thing that I can note here, at least in my opinion here, is how tight the playoff cut line is going into the first race. Brad Keselowski in 8th place, only 3 points above the cut line, just because the stage points were so top-heavy in the season for drivers. The playoff cut line is so tight. There's so many guys entering with, just 2 or 3 spots to the good here. I guess that's a good transition because that first race is basically a lottery race. Atlanta makes its way into the playoffs for the first time as the playoff opener in 2024. Listen, I could make a video just on my thoughts about Atlanta being in the playoffs alone. Of course, with the Olympics, they've changed the whole schedule for a one-off year. Darlington is normally the playoff opener. The Southern 500 will be back on the schedule for the playoffs in 2025. But for this year, Atlanta is the fill-in playoff opener. It's a lottery race. I mean, genuinely. Daniel Suarez was the one that won the spring race. I will note, though, since the new repave at Atlanta in 2022, only playoff drivers have won this race. Joe Logano, Chase Elliott, and William Byron twice, and then Daniel Suarez in the spring. So only drivers in this year's NASCAR playoffs have won in Atlanta. So as much as we say it's a lottery with this drafting style track, I guess the cream has risen to the top for the most part here. It's who can survive this drafting style track that's so tight at Atlanta. It's a mini Talladega of sorts. And who can get stage points, because stage points are going to be what, if you get caught up in a stage 3 wreck, at least you've gotten stage points in stage 1 and 2 to hang your hat on. If you don't get stage points in that race and then you get caught in a wreck, you could be in a big hole, especially like I said earlier with how tight that playoff cut line is moving into Atlanta. Again, it's a lottery race, but it's just who can survive. Race number 2 on the schedule, Watkins Glen. Again, for this one, it's very similar to Atlanta. Don't get caught up in the mess, but for different reasons. With it being the road course up in northern New York, it's just on those restarts. Always there's chaos there. It's always somebody getting rear-ended and causing up a 4 or 5 car pileup. But for these playoff drivers, it's just, can they avoid the mess? Can they get stage points again? And can they put themselves in a position to get a top 20, a top 15, or a top 10 in a day? Guys like Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin are not great on road courses historically, so they're at a disadvantage. But guys toward the lower end of the spectrum, like a Chase Briscoe, and Austin Cindric, a Ty Gibbs, historically they're pretty good on road courses, so they could make up the gap, potentially, that in Atlanta leaves. And then number 3, one of the most iconic races of all, the Bristol night race. The spring race was insane. Doesn't need to be said any more than that. The tire fall off was incredible. Denny Hamlin was the spring winner there. But for Bristol, this night race, it's short track racing. Anything can happen. So my biggest thing coming into this Bristol race for every single playoff driver, 1 through 16, unless you've won your way in, the biggest thing is just hold your fate. And I say this because I keep Joey Logano in mind from last year. The 2022 champion was the reigning champion coming into last year's playoffs, and Joe Logano wrecks out early and had to watch while his fate wasn't in his hands, and Bubba Wallace snuck his way into the next round, all because he kept a clean nose and finished top 5. Joe Logano had to sit there basically knowing with a wrecked car, I'm probably not going to be in the playoffs in the next round. So for Bristol, it's just hold your fate. If you can keep your car in one piece and get to the final stage where, okay, there's a points gap of maybe 3 or 4 points, the fate's in your hands to make that up. It's up to your pit crew to say, okay, we can get some track position here to make up for that. But if you're wrecked out and you're DNF'd, you're in a disadvantage already. Like I said, with the cut line so tight, for Bristol, it's just survive and advance. Control your fate. Because once you get out of Bristol, if you make it to the round of 12, the points reset. Okay, you can restart and you can go all over again for the round of 12. But again, Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol, that is a very, very tricky opener for the round of 16 here. And as foregone as it is to say, oh, Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, those guys, oh, they're easy outs. All it takes is a DNF by a Martin Truex Jr., a Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski having a bad showing on the road course, and it's anyone's game here. We didn't think Joe Logano was going to get eliminated last year, but he did. So again, it's not foregone, but the first step is getting through Atlanta this weekend. We'll see what happens here. I'm very intrigued to see Atlanta as the playoff opener. If anything like the three-headed finish we had in the spring, it's going to be an electric race. It's going to be must-see TV. Stay tuned to the channel. We'll keep you in the loop for everything NASCAR. Again, if you're new here, subscribe, like this video, and I want to hear down below, who do you think is the surprise driver that could be eliminated in the NASCAR playoffs this year in the first round? Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more here. We'll see you soon here at Breaking Balls.